Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 117 of the Aquarius podcast, brought to you by none other than Aquarium Co-op and their 1-2 punch of the Magic Small Fish feed. Let's turn that around. Ooh, that's a collector label. That says Magic Nano feed, but it's now Small Fish feed. And punch number 2, Easy Community Floating Pellet. So today my guest is Lowell. I have a full intro for him, but Lowell, what is your experience? How has your experience been with the Magic Small Fish feed and the Easy Community Floating Pellet, if you've had a chance to feed that one?
Yeah, I've used both. So I have primarily used the community floating pellet for angelfish, which are back behind me there. It's nice. Real good smell, good taste. So the fish like it. I mean, number one priority for me with the food is, do the fish actually eat it and eat all of it, not just leave it to break down. So they like it, tastes good. It's put on some good size on them in the last year, and it floats real well. And they like to take food off the surface. So big fan of it there. I've also fed it to some Corys just after letting it sink. They like it too. But yeah, big fan so far. And the Magic Small Fish feed, I haven't had a ton of opportunity to feed that, but just recently I tried using it with some Danios that are just past that phase where they can start taking dry food. And I've got them in a tank with one of the, what do you call it, the Easy Flow sponge filter kits.
Yep.
So it produces a lot of lateral flow, kind of a circular motion throughout the tank. And the way that stays suspended in the water column, it ends up making this swirling storm of little food particulates, and they go nuts for it. So again, yeah, good smell, good taste. They seem to really enjoy it, and that's all you can ask for when you're trying to feed small fish. So big fan.
Yeah, so we'll dig into it in the episode, but you are a big fish nerd, but that's not the exact word I'm looking for. You are a big experimenter, like a fish room science guy. And I feel like, and maybe we could talk offline about this, but sponsoring you to do from hatching egg to full adult exclusively on Magic Small Fish feed, and how that would compare to live foods, which live foods, phenomenal. Aquarium Co-op baby brine shrimp eggs, the Artemiosis, are actually loaded on the container. I got the photos yesterday, and so they're going to be hitting the water here in a couple days, and they will be coming back to us, and hopefully they'll be in stock before Christmas time. We'll see. I'll definitely have a hand in unloading that particular container and running it over to the freezer so we can put it back in stock. But just to see like how well it does, because I've raised rosy barbs from start to finish, basically on the Magic Small Fish feed exclusively, aside from any little like microscopic gubbins that they might be eating in the aquarium. And it seems anecdotally to be just as good, if not, well, I don't even want to say better than brine shrimp, but just at least as good as baby brine shrimp, being able to consistently and easily feed. And that might actually be kind of the edge on it, is that anytime you want to feed, you just drop a little pinch in there. Where brine shrimp, unless you're running 2 or 3 hatchers at any given time, you're going to have your delay, your cycle time for making more brine shrimp.
Yeah,
so let me sponsor that. I'll send you a whole pound of it, and we'll see what you can come up with.
That would be a fun experiment. But something helpful to keep in mind. I love brine shrimp. That's my absolute favorite food for fry, for small fish in general, even some larger ones. I am a brine shrimp guy, and of course the Co-op brine shrimp are the best. So please get them back. I have one can in my freezer.
Gold. I think so. I don't want to make a promise, but I think Corey and I, like, we have lamented, we have torn our shirts, like we've had very difficult conversations around. I'm using very like Old Testament biblical descriptions there.
Rending your garments, weeping and wailing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they have not been easy decisions on postponing, delaying the order of brine shrimp. We've talked about it before on Deep in the Mulm. I think Corey's talked about it on live streams, and I can briefly mention it again here. But the financial risk and the cost out, the capital outlay for a container of brine shrimp to make it make sense, and then the fact that it has to be a refrigerated container on top of that, and I can't consolidate too many of our other goods on those containers because of concerns on, I don't want to mess up like the cardboard packaging, right? Like if I get 5,000 sponge filters come in and all of the cardboard is warped, like that is not a good day for us. So it's been a very difficult thing. And, with geopolitical, economic, waves out there, like it's just tough. But I feel like he and I are both at the point where we don't ever want to let it run out of stock again. That it was that instrumental to so many people having success in their fish rooms and retail partner stores around the country that sell aquarium co-op stuff, not only their sales, but their own livestock health, that I feel like the brine shrimp eggs for the co-op brine shrimp eggs have become a staple for so many people that we're kind of letting people down. And that really feels bad.
Mm.
And so, always trying to make sure that we have an eye on, are we going to be good with the next brine shrimp resupply? Are we going to be able to make sure that we have a seamless resupply and we're not going to run out again? And that's going to be kind of one of my personal charters to make sure that that doesn't happen. And what's very funny is when we launched the brine shrimp eggs, knowing that we love them and Dean loved them before anybody else had them, when they first started hitting people's fish rooms, the number of people that were like, they're too expensive. They're just as good as da 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 da. Like the amount of like hate that we were getting about our brine shrimp eggs, and then just a few years later, it seems like it's totally flipped, and people realize that these are amazing. I stopped hatching brine shrimp before we brought these eggs in. And once we brought these eggs, or once we brought the eggs in, it was a game changer. The egg separation alone, I would even take like a 10% reduction in hatch rate just to have that egg separation, because having all of those hatched eggs mixed in, which you've done a little bit of research on that as well, but it just doesn't, it's just a feels bad. It's just a negative experience of when you're hatching out brine shrimp, when you're collecting it and you see all of the either spent or the unhatched egg, like shells, whichever ones those are that get settled in there. It's not great. So I stopped hatching because of that.
Well, look, even without those, if you want brine shrimp, you can get brine shrimp. There's plenty you can get, but the separation, like you said, makes a big difference. And even if you have pretty good separation, when you have unhatched shells in with the live that you're trying to feed, over time it accumulates. You end up with this ring of eggs around the surface of the water where it meets the walls of the tank. It's just so annoying. And you go to clean the tank and now they're swirling all over the place. So no, I think they're very much well worth it. So I've got my one can in the freezer that I refuse to open because someday I'm going to have some brine shrimp emergency and I want to have the best for that.
I think I would like to say, short of the container falling in the ocean because Godzilla decided to attack our cargo ship, which hopefully that doesn't happen. I was actually just talking about kaiju with Corey about 5 minutes ago in Messenger about
Is that a risk
else.
you guys talk about in business planning?
Godzilla?
Potential kaiju? Yeah.
There's when we stop recording, I'll tell you why, if you remind me why we're talking about kaijus. But man, where was I going? Oh, I feel comfortable that you can probably crack that can and start feeding out the brine shrimp, because again, it should be before Christmas, unless you feed just real heavy, which you might.
Like a teaspoon a day.
It should be before Christmas time that we have our container. Although there's always port strikes, there's always chassis shortages, there's always driver shortages, there's always rail schedule impacts. So there's still, even if we can make it across the Pacific without Godzilla attacking the ship, there's still so many supply chain risks. But I feel pretty confident that
I'm limping along. It's okay. I'm limping along with my next best thing. But my point about the brine shrimp is that as much as I like them, I was listening to someone talk about fish nutrition recently, someone who has put some real effort into being informed on these things. And he was making a case that as good as brine shrimp are, the best growth, the best health seems to come from a combination of live, frozen, right, the whole foods, and dry, because you can just pack so many different nutrients into a dry food that if it's eaten, like you're doing something for the fish that what they would eat in nature probably can't. Right. So a combination. So if you were feeding brine shrimp, even if you have brine shrimp, mixing in a little bit of dry food is supposed to be better. So the small fish feed, rotating that in, or maybe different times in the day you do one or the other, that might be better. And I'm kind of trying to work on that myself, is not leaning entirely on brine shrimp, but mixing in dry foods. And I think it's working.
Interesting. Awesome. Yeah, I'm guessing you were saying you wanted to update your talk that you gave to the co-op a few months ago. So I would assume probably updating some of those slides or getting some of that content in there. All right. Well, we've almost gotten 10 minutes. Let me go ahead and do my intro for you real quick so people know who in the world you are. All right. So today's date is Friday, November 21st, 2025. My guest today is Lowell Dunnaway. Lowell's a passionate hobbyist who has a strong focus on breeding fish. He's the content creator behind the YouTube channel Lowell's Fish Lab and the owner of the 3D print shop MakeMoreFish on Etsy. On his MakeMoreFish Etsy store, he sells awesome items like his automatic egg collector and fry tray, which the latter is used by master breeder Dean and Corey McElroy of Aquarium Co-op. Got a prop right here. Not used by me yet, owned, but not yet used by me. So Lowell has also given fish talks around the country on his experiences breeding fish and 3D printing items for the hobby. So Lowell, welcome to the podcast. 10 minutes later.
10 minutes later. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Better late than never.
I've seen most of these, by the way. Big fan of the podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, really, really enjoy the guests that you've had on. In particular, if I can shout somebody out, Chance, the Episto guy.
Oh, that was like episode 2 or 3.
I know that was a long time ago. But whenever I listen to people talk about fish topics with some expertise, I'm always looking for something that I can take away and do differently because of what they said. And when you hear enough talks, it becomes few and far between that you hear something like that's going to change what I do. And what he was talking about with sand being important for gill hygiene for the epistos with the sand sifting, that changed the way I thought about sand and about fine sand and about how fish keep themselves clean. So like that changed my approach to fish forever. So yeah, good job.
That's
Keep
awesome.
them coming.
That's awesome, man. That's so cool. And that episode with Chance, I haven't looked him up in years, since he and I recorded that episode. I feel like the audio, because it was new, and I think he might have not had the best connection, but I don't think the audio was the best. So if people go back and haven't listened to that, that's my disclaimer of show us some grace, because it was very early in the podcast and I still don't know what I'm doing, but I knew even less back then. And also as a personal hobbyist reflection, I say that I'm a seasoned, what do I say? I'm a seasoned newbie. Was that what I said on Deep in the Mulm? I can't remember.
I think something like that. Yeah.
I'm a seasoned newbie still. And I probably forever will be, just with the way that my mind works and the number of hobbies that I do have. But even back then, like I knew so much less, and that was very informative for me to hear that. And so that was a great time. And, glad to be doing this still 5 years later with, some long breaks in between, but here we are.
Yeah. Anyway, it's cool to be here.
Thank you, Lowell, for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. So you are speaking around the country. You gave a talk to the Aquarium Co-op members only fish club, which I just got done listening to. You are doing so much on 3D printing, which I don't want to nerd out too much on that because we talk about that a lot on Deep in the Mulm. But what is your background? How did you get into this? What's your origin story, Lowell?
On which angle? The fish, the 3D printing?
Oh, I'm sorry. On the fish. Yeah, we'll keep it. We'll keep it
on the fish. Okay. All right. So we grew up in the same general area, so you know kind of what it's like. There's a lot of squirrels. There's a lot of magpies, but we didn't exactly have a diverse array of wildlife around us, right? Like where I grew up, I saw one lizard my whole childhood.
Was it a blue belly? One of the little blue belly guys?
That was an alligator lizard.
Oh, in Sacramento? In Sacramento?
I think so. Yeah, I've never seen one again.
I hate those lizards because they're so mean. Like they won't back down. Oh, there were a lot in San Diego when we lived there.
Tons of western fence lizards here, but I think it was an alligator, and it was the only one I ever saw my whole childhood. So I loved animals, but there was never much around. And the ones that I really enjoyed most, because they felt so exotic and so sparse, was anything aquatic. So fish and frogs and anything that lived around water, I just loved. So I've always loved aquatic animals. We had an aquarium when I was a kid, got all set up from, what was the one? Capitol Aquarium.
I was just going to ask you that.
Peace.
Yes, man. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I talked about that. That store was amazing. And it's not like, when you're a real little kid, you remember things differently than how they actually were. But I was like a college age adult going into that store and just being completely blown away by its size, that waterfall when you walked in, being able to feed the
koi,
4-foot long giant koi. They also had the sacrifice is not the right word. The surrender, opposite of sacrificing. The surrender tank of the giant Plecostomus that were all in there. They had monsters, absolutely monster fish. Yes, rest in peace.
It was a magical place for sure for a young person to go in particular. But we had a simple tank that we got set up from there when I was a kid. had, that came and went, right? And then when I was a teenager, I went and caught stuff out of a local river and kept them for a while. Don't know how I kept them alive because I didn't know a thing really
Mm,
compared to
yeah.
now. I didn't know a thing about keeping animals alive, but I did somehow. And then went a long time without keeping really anything that wasn't a cat or dog, just because like I know the pattern of exotic animals is they're really appealing at first, but they don't engage with you like cats and dogs do, so they tend to
Hmm.
lose their appeal unless you're really into it. And so I just thought, like, I don't want to get an animal that I'm just going to end up just housing and taking care of, but not really engaging with. So as many years later, I probably went 10 years without keeping fish, but I was just for fun. I was going to try doing the aquaponics thing where you grow plants. I was going to
Hmm.
try to grow some herbs or vegetables with fish waste, and I wanted to get cool fish. I thought, okay, I'm going to take this animal in my care. I'm going to keep it for a while, so I want it to be a cool fish. So I got some cool fish from like an actual fish store, not from like a Petco. And I never even got the whole system done. Just as I was housing those fish, some of them spawned just incidentally. They bred,
Mm.
and as soon as I saw those little fry, they were CPDs actually. Those are the first fish I ever bred were CPDs, and I kind of moved them from one tank to another, and then in the tank where they were, there's just fry everywhere, and I was
Wow.
completely blown away. I didn't know that you could breed fish, and I never got the rest of the thing set up, and from then on, just breeding fish. I
So
don't think I've
I,
ever actually kept fish as an adult. I have
I
only bred fish.
that's that's an awesome like
That's
little
my
feather
whole
in your
hobby.
cap. Like I've never kept them. I've only bred them. I don't know what you guys are doing, but
Yeah, there's zero display
so
tanks. It's only breeding.
so so your aquaponics setup that you had in mind, how did you end up with CPDs? Because that feels like kind of the last fish I would think, like maybe zebra danios or just some like random generic tetras. Like,
Look, this
how
wasn't
large?
going to work. This wasn't going to work. If I if I look back on it to back then, what I was planning wasn't going to work. But I was just thinking about this was going to be very small. I was just going to do a few herbs. It wasn't going to be some massive system. Um, but given the water space that I was dealing with, I went and looked up on the internet like how do you keep fish alive,
Hmm.
and so recommendations. Here are fish that are reasonable to keep in that small of a water volume, and that was one of them. And I just picked some
Mm,
that I like. I got some Corys, got some CPDs. They're just like, yeah, those are cool looking. That's it. Just by chance.
nice. And so the Corys were in there with the CPDs when they spawned, or were they in a different
Yes,
setup? Okay.
yes.
Wow. And they didn't just murder all the fry. That's awesome. Or
No,
gobble up the eggs.
there happened to be a lot of gravel in
Gotcha.
there, and yeah, they weren't even spawning in plants at that time. They were just spawning in gravel mounds because that's the best that they could find, and the Corys didn't get them.
Awesome. Okay.
Hmm.
And so then, all right, let's go ahead and take me on your adventure from there. So you bred the CPDs. You're like, this is awesome. Like you're making
Hmm.
life. That's cool.
Yeah. Let me see. What did I do there? So I had a bit of a hard time at first because CPDs are, well, egg scatterers in general, but CPDs are also really not what I would recommend someone to start off breeding because the adults want to die, and it's, I think it's our job to deny them the satisfaction of doing so. But adult CPDs can die in the most comically ridiculous set of ways. And the fish themselves, the fry, I mean, they're tiny. Right? Egg scatterers
Hmm.
are hard to raise because they need such small foods. And CPDs also have this added complication of not really wanting to take food off of the surface or the bottom. They really want to eat out of the mid column, which is especially challenging. So that was
Not if you have
hard
magic small
for.
fish feed.
That's right, but it
Mhm.
didn't exist back then.
True. Touche. Touche,
No,
sir.
you're actually right. That would be applicable if you can get enough flow going to keep them suspended for a
Mhm.
pretty long time. Yeah, so that was a bit tough for me, and ended up doing. I mean, I was combing the internet looking for how to do better because I had like a really good spawn, and I got them a few weeks, and then ended up losing all of them. And I was feeding them okay. It was actually looking back on it, it was probably a nitrite spike that took
Mm.
them out because I tried to put them in another tank that just wasn't quite ready. Um, but yeah, just combing the internet looking for advice on how do you raise these things, how do you keep them alive. And that was actually why I started making YouTube videos about breeding fish, is that I was so frustrated by what I couldn't find about how to take care of them. Like I'm a little thick, I'm a little dense, and I really need it spelled out for me. I need detail, and I'm also kind of a show me, don't tell me type of person. And
Hmm.
so I had such a hard time finding information that would help me breed those fish and raise the fry. That's the whole reason I started putting anything on YouTube, is just as a little roughly hewn sign tacked to a tree for the next guy walking down the trail to say like, hey, here's a little something to maybe give you an easier time than I had.
Mm.
But the CPDs and then some Corridora spread for me again, just kind of accidentally. I mean, if you just take decent care of the fish, they'll kind of do that on their own. And I was like, that's two. Wow, they just seem to all want to breed. Fish just want to breed, and then kind of went nuts and went from 2 tanks to 20 to 30. Over the next year or so.
Nice. And are
Mm.
you a member of the Sacramento Club at this time while you're breeding these first two species, or is it just
No,
you? Okay, so you're just you on the internet.
shortly after.
Okay,
Hmm.
gotcha. And did that experience go down kind of in that same house, the same fish room that you're in right now?
No,
Okay.
no. That was a different place.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so at what point, so now that you're in your current fish room, which looks like an awesome fish room, looks super clean. I like the layout of it, looking great. What did you have in your
Where is it?
clean? Oh, clean or die. So did you get that? That's like a master breeder Dean thing right there, man. That guy. Gee, even I went to his fish room on like an off day where he had been behind on maintenance, and it was still 20 times cleaner than I could ever get my own fish room. So
I expect that to be the case. Yeah,
well, and that's also why he makes so many more fish than me.
that's right.
Uh, so then, what did your progression look like in the overall fish room? Then, like, how many tanks did you have in your previous place, and now how many tanks do you have in this iteration of what you're keeping?
Well, before I had a I basically went through a process of replacing pieces of furniture with fish tanks, really budgeting, looking around and going, can I live without that piece of furniture? Yes. Okay. Fish tanks will go there. And then started building racks. So I think I used to have three racks, if you can call it that, just kind of wherever they would fit. This
Hmm.
is the first time I've had a room that is for nothing but fish. And this is my desk. My computer is right here,
Hmm.
because I could have put more tanks here, but I want to spend as much time in this room as I can. So I spend a
You
ton of
say that,
time on
but
my
there is a
computer.
tank right there to your right that looks like it's basically on your desk.
This
So,
one,
yeah,
don't worry about that.
that looks real close to just being on your desk.
Nothing going on over there. Yeah, and actually, so I'm looking at a
Also a little
monitor.
blue light too, man. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know
No,
what's
it's
going
not.
on.
It's not blue. It's just the reflection, just the
We
camera.
should we
Don't worry
should
about
taste
that.
that water, see if it's a little salty.
Uh, so I'm looking at a monitor right now, and there's actually another tank below it because the monitor's on a pivoting, mount.
That's
So there
hilarious.
happen to be two small tanks on this desk, but let's just say this is where I spend a ton of time right on the computer, and I wanted that to be in here with the fish, so
Hmm.
that I'm not in that struggle pattern of not spending enough time with them, not seeing what they're doing. Like there's huge benefits to being in this room for multiple hours a day.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So then, how many tanks do you have in your room at this time?
Mm, in this room, probably 30, and there's a closet back there, and there's more in the closet.
Okay.
There's a few in another room. There's probably four in another room. I forget the number. I think the total is probably like 37 at the
Okay.
moment.
And and how long have you been at the 37 number? And then kind of help me understand, are you at like a critical mass? Do you want to add more? Do you want to kind of reduce a little bit so you can focus even harder on the tanks that are left?
Let me see here. I was probably at 25 for several years, and then in this room had a little bit more space to have more going, so went up by, let's just say, 10, in the last months. I would say I shouldn't add tanks to it. I have a lot, and right now I feel inclined to get more because
Hmm.
I was traveling and going and visiting fish clubs all year, and everywhere I go, I come home like I'm like throwing stuff out of my luggage so I have more room for bags of fish to take home with me. Like because I saw things that I just don't see here. Some things I don't even see online that often. I'm like, I can't miss that opportunity. So I've brought home so many species of fish this year that it's kind of ballooned, and I need more tanks, but I don't want more than this. That's a
Hmm.
few too many to take care of.
So have you cut into your grow out ratio of like, hey, these are my breeding tanks, and then here's my grow out tanks, and now you've just turned grow out tanks into, well, this is going to hold my fish that I brought home from Portland, or this brought, this I brought this home from the East Coast. Are you
Mhm.
kind of running into that in your fish room?
Yeah, I'm really short on grow out space in particular because so many tanks are filled up with adult fish, and I don't like to I don't like to have too many species together. Generally, like to keep things
Mm-hmm.
separate, and I also don't like to keep fry with adults.
Mm-hmm.
Like clean fish with potentially dirty fish. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
like to keep them separate, but this one right here is almost all for grow out. There's another one that you can't see that's off camera. There's a rack of 10s right here to my left. Some of those are just for grow out. There's some 20s in the closet for it, but yeah, most of my tanks are currently full of adult fish.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so I'm seeing a combination of what, 20 highs, 40 breeders. Is that a low boy on the bottom left?
That is the rare 30 breeder.
Oh, the third. I had a
The
30
30
breeder.
breeder. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, 30 breeders. Is it Aquarium Masters with the black silicone?
Deep blue.
Oh, deep blue. Okay.
I think it's deep blue. I forget. It looks like Aquarium Masters, but I think it's deep blue is the brand, but with the Aquarium Masters lids.
The
Yeah.
30 breeder and the 15s. Oh, I miss those things. They're so awesome.
I know
Such
15s are great too.
such good size. Because once you go from that 10, and this is my other soapbox thing, the 10-gallon, the glass is too thin. That's Randy on his that's my, I don't even know if that's a hot take. That just feels like a fact. The Aqueon, whoever makes 10 gallons, they need to just, that next glass thickness when you bump up to the 20s or the 15, go with that glass thickness on the 10. That's all I'm saying. And then even go to the 5-gallon and take the glass from the 10-gallon and put it on the 5. Because the 5, I don't even know how that thing
Yes.
holds water without just cracking with to a breeze in your room.
So there's some fives over there, and they're all drilled. They're
Ooh,
plumbed. Yeah,
ooh.
I
How many
drill
did you?
five
How
gallons.
many did you break?
One. It's not
Okay,
it's not
I
the
would
it's
have
not the
broke them all.
drilling.
I would
It's
have broke
it's
them all.
yeah, it's not the drilling that I find risks cracking them. It's any pressure applied, like if you're clamping anything onto it as a
Yeah.
guide for drilling, it's not so bad. But yeah, I'm with you. I wish the fives had the thicker glass, but there's a downside too to the thicker glass on the 20s, and I like them. Like I think there's more. There's some over there. 20 highs I think are the best tank.
Mm,
I've added more of those than anything else. Like they're a really good footprint. They make really good use of cubic space. They're not
mm,
good to do lengthwise, but if you're not doing lengthwise, they're
yeah.
they're a great footprint. But the downside with the thicker glass like that is you get more visual distortion, especially if you're filming. The thicker the glass is,
Oh.
the worse the hit is to the video quality if you're not perfectly orthogonal to the glass. So if you're looking straight through a 40 breeder, you're going to get decent picture quality. But if you're at any angle, the thicker the glass, the worse. And the distortion on a 40, for example, is awful compared to a 5 or a 10 or
Wh-
even a 20.
When you say orthogonal, because I don't want to type right now, do you mean perpendicular, or what is orthogonal a photo, like a
So
videography term?
perpendicular, no, orthogonal is like perpendicular, but it's
Uh huh.
on a plane rather than a line. So like this being a line, that's perpendicular. But if
Uh
this
huh.
is a plane, or orthogonal would mean that it's perpendicular no matter which way you rotate it.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
so this or that, it doesn't matter. You need to be
Ah,
perpendicular to the whole plane of the glass, or the video quality is real bad.
gotcha. Gotcha. Words with Randy, everybody. We just learned orthogonal. You're welcome. Use
There you
that
go.
at your at the dinner table. Educate your family, everyone. Awesome. So what species are you keeping in the fish room right now?
Oh boy, a lot of Corys. I think I don't really have a specialty. I've always tried to mix it up and work with as many different types of fish as I can to diversify, experience.
Hmm.
But I think if I had to pick, and I think I'm kind of picking, I really really like Corydorus.
Yeah.
So I don't know, what do we got here. There's CW 127s, a super parallelis are over there. There's Brocus panthenolensis in there. Some of the Orontiacus, the lampi congos, the yellow and blue ones that are really cool.
Hmm.
Some Danios, got a Pistogramma benchi there, and some pencil fish. There's leopard frog plecos in that 20 long. Angels, CW 111s, the Vulcans in that small tank there. Geophagus sveni, some regular Congo tetras, and some concolor
Hmm.
cories.
Geophagus seems like an interesting one for a fish room. Are you just wanting to play with geophagus? Like what
That's
brought
it.
that in? Okay.
Well, I've always wanted to. I generally shy away from larger stuff, so angelfish is about as big as I'll go.
Right.
But I just wanted to. I just wanted to try them. They're cool, and we also have somebody local here that has some spheni, and I saw them in person, and I was really
Mm,
impressed by them. So I just wanted to. It's
yeah.
that's funny you mentioned that. So Dean was here. No, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months ago,
You let him
and
in your house? Oh, that was a mistake.
yes, yes, I did. And he saw the geos, and he just said, "Why?" That was so funny. I
Doesn't
think
he have a tank with geos? I feel
that's
like
what I thought. I was like, "Hey, man, I
I
learned
thought
from
he
watching
did.
you. This is your fault."
Yeah.
I saw those redhead tapajos. Yeah. Um,
That's funny.
I just wanted to. I just want to try them. What else do I
Sure,
have? There's
sure.
there's a bunch of really cool stuff in that far right one, like chocolate gouramis, some cool
Mhm.
erythistes,
So
catfish, that kind of thing.
so in your talk, you're a big proponent of breed things that are you have an outlet for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Breed things that you will actually you'll be able to have good animal husbandry through the whole thing. And what I mean by that is when you are done with them and they are grown out, they have a good home to move on to. So for like the
Mm-hmm.
geophagus, or maybe in general, do you have a particular fish store? Is it your club? What is your outlet for the fish that you breed? I'm or maybe it's something that you kind of use as like a little side hustle, a little something to help offset the cost of renting the fish room.
Yeah, it depends, and that's always been a struggle for me. That's why I talk about it, is because it's such an important thing to consider, is where the fry going to go when you breed them. We have several really good stores here, some of them larger. So we have one that I know would take the Sven because I saw them selling adults
Mm,
multiple times. So that kind of clued me in that those would have a place to go. A lot of the smaller stuff, I mean, any store will
right.
take. The local club is really good too. We have the club is really, it's big now, and very auction centric. Our auctions are massive, and people are more motivated to show up in numbers even for a good auction opportunity than they are
Mm,
for really good speakers. And so most things can go to the club, some things go to the store. I'm trying to, and I kind of scale how many fry I try to make depending on where I think they're going to go. So if I don't think there's going to be a lot of demand for it, I might still breed the fish, but not pull as many eggs, not raise
mm,
as many fry, just to, get the BAP points and maybe sell a
right.
few bags, but otherwise not be hung up on them. Yeah.
Right. Is the Sacramento Club, does it still meet in the back of a round table, or has
It
it moved
did
on?
until recently, but
Oh,
that
really?
location actually suddenly closed. Like it shut down permanently. So we moved on to a another similar location. Yeah.
And that was in like Antelope, right? Antelope or Citrus Heights?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
See, the old memory is working. Let's see here. What was my other question for you on that thread? I think I just had a brain fart as I thought about pizza. Barbados. So talk to me about. I've One of my fun stories is that I had Barbados for a solid year in my fish room in Washington before I eventually broke things down and moved. And I could not get them to spawn. Tried so many different tricks. And the funny story is that when I turned them into the co-op, I just took most of my fish to the co-op. Within a week of being in one of the co-op display tanks, the Barbados were spawning on the glass. So in your video, I think you talk about how Barbados could potentially also be or you did see it spawn in mops, yeah?
No, they wouldn't. They had no
Oh, they
interest in
wouldn't.
spawning on mops. No,
Okay.
they ignored them. They only spawned on hard surfaces like the tank
Okay.
class.
Well,
Hmm.
well, that doesn't make me feel bad then, I guess. But I still couldn't get them to breed on the tank class. So I guess in my head, I was feeding heavier. I was feeding live baby brine shrimp every single day. They were getting supplemented with frozen bloodworms. Water changes were happening every single day, probably 20% water changes in all the tanks. Water supply should have been the same in Edmonds as it was for me in Woodinville, which is just a couple towns over. So what would be some theories, or what do you do in that kind of a situation where, because clearly like they were able to spawn. So it's not like I had a group of all males or all females and they were doing the thing and making eggs. What are your thoughts on that?
Well,
How would you, I guess, diagnose that?
do you know for sure that you had males and females?
Well, okay, so they never laid eggs for me. Let's say that.
Okay, and you would
So at
know
least all
even if they
females.
ate them, because you'd have a patch of residue on the tank
Correct.
glass, even if they
Correct.
ate them. Okay, well,
And they seem like the laziest cories ever that would just lay on the. I want to say I did fine substrate. I tried bare bottom. I tried adding sand. I mixed it up a lot. Plants, no plants.
what
Big
temperature were they
cold
at?
water flushes. I think my fish room was probably a consistent 75.
Okay, yeah, that's not a problem. But scleromastax in general come from an area that's not as warm. I don't think
Mm.
it's tropical. I think it's subtropical. So mine would spawn at 68
Oh wow.
Fahrenheit. Yeah, they don't want to be that warm. They don't want to be typical
Mm.
fish room temperature. So, once you start getting above 75, between 75 and 80, they can survive, I think, even for a long time at that temperature, but they will start to show stress.
Mm.
They don't like that. So basically unheated is where they're most comfortable,
Mm.
right around 70. But I don't think that'd be the obstacle. Like, I wouldn't say if you had them at 75, that's why they weren't breeding. Are your water's soft enough, right? It's not like you have
Hmm.
super hard water and they didn't like
No,
it.
it's very soft. It's
Yours is softer than
basically
mine.
basically rainwater. Yeah.
I couldn't tell you. I don't think that they weren't a challenging fish to breed. I mean, I
Mm.
grew them out to an adult size in a 10-gallon, so it's not like they were getting some extraordinary level of care. They ate mostly brine shrimp, and I started seeing eggs. They just started breeding on their own.
Mm.
Raised those up, and the
Wow.
fry became young adults. Actually, they were hanging out in one of these 40s here, which has almost nothing in it, very bare, very plain. And as soon as they hit the right size, they started spawning too. So I don't think you were doing anything wrong, and there's nothing that I would adjust to try to do better. I would
Yeah.
I would go back to, are you sure you even have boys and girls, because they're not a hard fish to breed.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. Well, at the very least, there were females. It could have been an entire group of females, but yeah, I mean, maybe one thought is, so when I would do, I had a utility sink in the fish room that had a Python tube hooked up to it with a Python hook, and I did large cold water flushes, and they would become incredibly active. Like the first time I did it, I thought of like, oh yes, I unlocked it. They're going to spawn finally. And then once I was done, it just kind of like subsided, and they're like, all right, we're going to go back to being lazy. So yeah, I don't know, but maybe that would be the thing though, because the water quality, the nutrition was right. Maybe I could have tried ditherfish, but then you're not saying that ditherfish seemed to be a big factor in that. They were in a species only tank, so yeah, maybe just longer term exposure to just being in a cooler temperature, and not trying to rely on a triggered like cold water flush.
So this is kind of a rabbit hole topic that I won't go too deep on. But I was talking to, do you know who Jerry Jost is? You ever heard that name?
I can
He's out
I
of
can do a quick
Missouri.
Google. Go for it.
He's in St. Louis.
Hmm.
Yeah, he owns a chemical company, so he has considerable resources at his disposal. And one of the things he's chosen to put effort into is building a rather large fish room in one of his warehouse spaces. He keeps, I think it's over 120, maybe 150 different species of Corydoras. He's got things I've never heard of before, never seen before, and will probably never see in person again. But I got to go hang out in his fish room for a little bit, and I was trying to ask him for just his general thoughts on, what would you recommend? How do you get cories to spawn? And he thought about it for a second, and he said sometimes it's just about getting the right group.
Mm,
So not only do you have males and females, but also, are they the right males and females? There are some female cories that just never spawn. They never
mm,
want to, and sometimes they're the ones you think would. They're the big fat ones. You think, oh yeah, that's going to be the one that makes all the eggs. Some of them never do. They do have a social structure with a dominance hierarchy, and not all of them are inclined to spawn. So I don't know what happened there. I don't think you did anything wrong. But what I do think is that if you got another group of 8 or 10 of them today and raised them to a size, I bet you they would breed for you with no particular effort on your part.
yeah, I think Fish Room 2.0. I think that will be one of the fish. Also CPDs as well. It's funny that how you talked
Mm.
about how easy it was for you to breed them. Those two fish for sure will be fish that I need to get in there, breed them the 1 or 2 times, and then cross it off the list and say, I'm
Hmm.
good riddance. I'm done with you. You may go on and live a happy life somewhere else.
I
The
have some of those.
CPDs, yeah, the CPDs, I think my problem and what I won't do in Fish Room 2.0 for kind of how I want to keep fish and work with them is they were on the top rack of one of the gladiator racks in a were those 10s or 15s? I think they were 15 lengthwise, and I could just never see them. I never saw them. I never observed them really. What I would do is I would, stand up, open the lid, squirt some baby brine shrimp in, and then just walk away.
Hmm.
So I think, just not being able to observe and be in tune with them. And I think that's a good segue into how in tune you are with your fish and your use of technology in your fish room. But just not observing them, not seeing what's happening. I did the same thing with leopard frog plecos. I had them in a 20 long that was actually even pushed back farther on the third, on the top row of a rack. And it was pushed back because of how I ran my overflow plumbing. Right, it needed to be closer to the back of the rack where the tubing was, where the pipe was, and so it wasn't pushed up at least all the way to the front, so I could see it easier. So definitely some lessons learned just in fish room, layout and construction. But yeah, I think personally for me, making sure that I have a smaller number of tanks that I can then focus more attention on, but making sure that they're at, the two levels, right? Not too low on the
Hmm.
ground,
Hmm.
not too high up in the air, kind of those two mid, top and bottom, and then call it good.
Yeah, I think that would help quite a bit. I mean, your CPDs were probably breeding every day. They're
Mm,
probably breeding every day, but they're also micro predators. And typically,
mhm,
unless the tank is pretty spacious and there's a lot of hiding spaces, they will eat their fry. They'll eat them all eventually. Like I don't know if I can remember an occasion where I had CPD fry actually survive to adulthood with adults. You have a window
mhm,
of time where you might find them before the adults do, but they will get them. So if you can separate the eggs from the adults, and there probably were eggs, that would have been no problem for you. And the
mhm.
leopard frogs, mine just spawned earlier this year. I've got 40 beautiful
Oh,
young adults
nice.
in that 40 there. Yeah, they're so cool.
Awesome.
Plecos are really boring until they breed, and then it
Yeah.
just that's so cool. But yeah, they're just little fish fruit, little balls of fat wiggling around all over the tank. And I think if I hadn't seen them, at night, they sit in their caves all day, but at night, the leopard frogs, like I watch them with an infrared camera at night, and they're monsters. They're so aggressive, they're so active, they're just beating each other up and fighting over space all night. And they
Mhm,
probably would have killed most of those fry
mm.
by the next morning. So if I hadn't seen them right then, I wouldn't have had those to raise. So now awareness is everything, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and another thing too, when I was in Washington at the end of the fish room, my boys were 2 and 4. So basically, my fish room routines were so I would always have two hatchers, two Zis hatchers going with brine shrimp. I would probably spend 10 minutes in the fish room, and that would include harvesting the brine shrimp, feeding every single tank with brine shrimp, maybe supplementing with some frozen food here and there, cleaning the dirty hatcher, refilling it back up, getting the next hatch going, and then piecing out. And then maybe
Yeah.
once every 2 weeks, doing a larger gravel vac to get mulm that had built up. Which at this point, I don't know. I'll experiment with leaving some tanks mulmy and some tanks not in Fish Room 2.0. But now that my boys are they're 5 years older at each age level, right? They don't require as much parental input throughout an evening in order for us to kind of have peace and family peace at nighttime. I'll be able to dedicate more time into the fish room, and so just kind of seeing where I was at the life stage as well. I think kind of contributes to just like, okay, everything, they're alive. Okay, pop my head down, go. Right, not spending the time that it takes for each tank to really see like, well, what's happening. Which again, like to dovetail into what you do, the footage that you get of behavior in tanks is phenomenal. Can you talk about that?
Mm, yeah. Like in regards to how?
All of it. So
Oh.
as an example, scarlet badises kind of wrapping up breeding.
Oh yeah.
The triggering, like the releasing of eggs by corridors on the glass, or Bosemani rainbow, like ejecting eggs into a clump of Java moss. Like you have your footage, spawning cave footage of Crebensis and Apistos
Mhm.
is amazing. It's like Planet Earth, National Geographic scaled to a fish room. It is
Uh-huh.
phenomenal. And I don't, I watch I dabble in some YouTube fish stuff, but when when you work and live the hobby, you don't spend too much time doing that. But your stuff though is just on another level, and I think it's phenomenal. So how did you start with
Okay.
that? I guess what is your setup?
Okay. Well, when I was first trying to make YouTube videos about breeding fish, I just noticed that people seemed to like it and seemed to respond to them more if they included footage of the fish actually, reproducing, actually breeding.
Hmm.
So it's not always necessary. Like there's a lot of times if I might show that kind of footage, that doesn't really help you with anything. That doesn't help you do something different that's going to make you more successful. But there's an element of just appreciating seeing an animal do the zenith activity of their whole existence. We
Well,
have
it
other
confirms.
priorities.
Somebody on a forum can tell you to use a spawning mop, right? Somebody on the
Hmm.
forum could tell you that, they'll spawn on the glass or they'll spawn on an Amazon sword leaf. But when you see the actual footage of what's happening, you're like, well, that's, assuming it's not AI generated, right? Now that's our next thing
Right.
we got to worry about. But, like your stuff is legit. Like that confirms what people say.
Yeah, so number one, it is just cool, just kind of like a nature
100%.
documentary and perspective.
100%. Yeah.
So it's fun and I enjoy that. But it turns out, a lot to be learned from catching them in the act and seeing how and where they choose to do it. Like when you see the way that egg scatterers connect, the way that fertilization happens outside of the body, it can lead to conclusions. They may not be right, but to me, it makes me think a ripping water current is probably not good for external
Hmm.
fertilization. So calmer water probably helps one meet the other a little bit more easily without being swept away in the water. Or seeing the way that epistles behave inside of a cave can help you understand why are they spawning but there's no eggs, but there's no fry. Why is it unsuccessful? What kind of a cave shape best facilitates them spawning? Or with the Battis, for example, where do they like to spawn? And that can help you set up a tank properly to give them the right kind of physical structure they're looking for as the place that they want to breed. So it is cool, but it's also, I think, very valuable. I have learned so much from actually watching them spawn, especially from the epistles. That's my absolute favorite, is seeing that, because that how often do you get to see that?
Hmm.
Who's
Yeah.
it's so rare. It's so hard to actually see that. And I have, like, most of it doesn't matter, but there's so much complexity to the behavior of what happens inside of that cave before, during, and after a spawn. The whole long list of criteria for how the fish's behavior contributes to success or failure in that spawn, and it's been crazy to see. Like, I don't think anybody else is really going to benefit from it, but it's just fascinating. From a equipment perspective, I started with a cell phone, just a cell phone camera, and a borrowed Panasonic Lumix from a friend of mine. But even cell phone cameras are really good because they're pretty good these days at
Hmm.
close focus distance,
Hmm.
and a lot of them have kind of a macro mode.
Hmm.
But it's mostly about macro lenses these days. I use a real nice Sony camera, and I think I have 5 or 6 different macro lenses that I use for different situations. And then the rest of it is just being there.
Yeah.
It's being there, and when they're doing it and having the chance to set up and record it. That's half the battle. It's just being there to see it.
So if we focus on epistogrammas, because the final culmination, maybe, or at least the most recent one that I watched, is you have like a cutaway cave that is
Hmm.
designed to be pushed against the front of the glass. And when I say the front, what's going to be closest to you for filming, and it gives you you basically have this cross section, this complete view of inside a cave. And I think, is there substrate built up around it as well, or is it just the
Not
cave is on
really.
top of the substrate? Okay.
It's just sitting on the substrate. Hmm.
So is that like your first take at it? Like, hey, like you instantly came up with this, or did it start with you filming the epistos while they're trying to go into a traditional ceramic epistogramma cave that's over in a corner? Like, what is that? What did
Well,
that look like?
the first time I ever recorded a pistos spawning was from outside the cave, which is kind of
Hmm.
cool. You could see their faces, and you could see that they were working on something in there, and there were some eggs on the floor. And I saw the same thing with cribs, and I just thought, well, how cool would it be if you could see what was going on in there? And so I started thinking, is there a way I can get a camera inside of the cave? And I thought about some things, but that wouldn't be very practical. So then I started doing a cave with a, an open back that can go up against the tank glass, so the camera can be outside of the tank, and that makes it really easy. The only tricky part is getting light angled into the cave in the right way to not disrupt the footage or really bother the fish. But I started with cutting flower pots in half, where the back, wider opening is up against the
Mm-hmm.
tank glass, and I would carve a little door into the narrower bottom of the flower pot, and that worked really well. And I would probably still be using those, except that I had several lepistos that really like to lay their eggs on the very back of the cave, almost touching the glass, and the camera can't capture that very well, can't focus on them, and it's kind of out of the frame. So I was trying to discourage them from spawning there. I want them to spawn on the ceiling in the middle distance of the
Mm.
cave. So it's 3D printed, of course, but
Mm-hmm.
it has spikes closest to the glass. There's about 3/4 of an inch of, and they're blunted. Okay, I don't, it looks a bit like a medieval torture device, but they're blunted. It's fine. It's hostile architecture. Have you heard that
Yeah,
expression, hostile?
I
So,
have now.
uh,
Well, like for pigeons, right? If like for keeping birds away, the spikes.
exactly. That is a perfect example. So hostile architecture in the back, 3/4 to 1 inch of the cave. So the surface is too uneven and they won't be able to lay their eggs there. It's
Mm-hmm.
also just outside the frame of the camera's view. And so what it does
Mm.
is force them into the middle distance of the cave and spawn there. So they're filmable.
That is fascinating and awesome. And I just kind of picture the female Episto going to the male like, "Hey, honey, I found this real nice place. There's a small little catch,
Uh-huh.
but once you get around the spikes, there's this nice spot in the middle for us to spawn. I think we should just go for it."
Yep. Yep.
That's awesome.
It works.
So did you make any, like, was it just the first iteration print, boom, it was good to go, or did you have to kind of iterate with the hostile architecture? That's the second word of the day.
No, it pretty much one and done. The only thing I had to come back and revise a second time was some pockets on the outside of the cave that I throw sand in to weigh it down, because unless
Okay.
you print it 100% infill,
Right.
that kind of an object is going to float. And so I want it to be heavy and stationary so that they're not bumping it around or it's not just
Hmm.
taking off and floating. So yeah,
Hmm.
just a couple buckets on the sides to throw heavy stuff in and weigh it down. But other than
So
that,
did you not just print that at 100% infill and then do sand anyway, or did you do like 15 and then rely on the sand for the weight to save on filament?
I didn't try printing at 100% infill. I've actually never done that. I've never printed at 100% infill. Why didn't I? I wanted it to be heavier even than that,
Mm.
because they're pretty big, strong fish. So when they're in there, they're bumping into the walls too, and they will move it away from the glass, and that
Right.
gets weird. The fry come out the back. It needs to be heavier even than 100% plastic.
Hmm.
So if I'm gonna add weight anyway, why bother with 100% infill?
Hmm. What other things have you designed to help you with your filming?
Some fixtures to hold a camera, again orthogonal, outside of the tank for example. Other than that, not a whole lot for filming.
Okay. What other takeaways did you learn from watching Apistos or any other fish for that matter?
Well, Epistos experience has a lot to do with it. Where I saw them fail in a diverse set of ways, like knowing that it was the first spawn in a female's life, for example, or likely the first spawn, at least in a very
Hmm.
long time. Seeing the way that the eggs don't stick to the walls and they just kind of fall down,
Mm.
it built to me this opinion that their eggs can go stale, and I know they do actually, because after enough time without spawning, they will dump the eggs and then eat them to recycle the nutrients. So seeing old eggs not do well, seeing them the tightness of the cluster. Sometimes they lay eggs and they're all over the place. They're very spread out. Well, when
Hmm.
you watch the way that a male Episto fertilizes eggs, which is kind of like a spray and pray, they just kind of like fling
Hmm.
milt in the direction of the eggs. They're really not good at it. I personally think Epistos have a bad strategy for producing a lot of fry. There's a reason for it, because they have to be able to get milt into weird little nooks and crannies where the females choose to put eggs in the wild. But if you compare that to Crobensis, for example, where the male makes direct contact with the eggs in a tight cluster while fertilizing, they make 3 times the fry, like consistently. Apistos do not make, sometimes they do, but that's an anomaly in my opinion. Like 30 or 40 is a great number, where Crobensis can make 200 like that, like nothing. I think it's fertilization strategy. But
I was just to theorize. I wonder if in the wild there's more predation on an apisto, so they take more of an approach of, this is an incredibly vulnerable time for us, so I'm just going to spray and pray and get out of here. Where maybe in a Crebensis environment, they have that time. It's almost a luxury at that point to actually make physical contact with the eggs.
maybe.
Just throwing that out there. I don't know.
It totally could be. I love forming conjectures. I love
Right.
forming ill-informed conjectures about why they do this
That's
stuff.
all I have. That's all I have.
There's some kind of risk. So the females, I think it's the females pick a spot that is very hard to get to. They pick the smallest space they can find, and sometimes the male can't fit inside. And so he has to be able to, from a distance, get milt into the spot where the eggs are laid, even if he can't physically get there. And because he has that instinct to throw milt at a distance, well, even when he's right next to the egg, he still does that. He still just kind of flings it in that direction where Crebensis go right up to it. It's very, very interesting stuff. But the clustering of the eggs, whether it's a tight, some apisto females when they're more experienced, I feel like too, the eggs get in a nice cluster. And if you think about having concentrated targets for that milt to reach, that's going to get you better fertilization. Where if the eggs are all over the place, it's not gonna reach them all, right? So
yeah, one thought too is maybe like fungus rates, which I know that's something we deal with in an aquaria, but maybe the fungus rate of eggs is not as much of a thing in the wild. But eggs spread out, right? If one of them funguses, it doesn't have a bunch of neighbors to also infect, for lack of a better term, or to spread. What do you think?
They never get the chance. It could be, but they never get the chance because the females sit there and bird dog the eggs for the entire time. And if they see, I mean, a glint of light on the egg that looks like white, like dead egg, they'll pluck it off the wall and destroy it. I have never seen apisto eggs fungus, not even a little bit. In fact, the females are so overzealous with their cleaning and tending of the eggs, constantly jostling them and picking at them, that I think the females eat probably half of the good eggs they had.
Okay, just in their cleaning process, they're accidentally eating the eggs.
Yep. The worst threat to surviving fertile apisto eggs is the female overzealously cleaning and tending to them after they've been fertilized.
Interesting. Do you think you would have potentially a higher hatch rate if you pulled the female and let the eggs do their thing?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm almost sure of it. If you took a freshly fertilized batch of eggs and you pulled those and raised them artificially, like if you did methylene blue, when there's that many eggs in close space, I think you really need the hardcore methylene blue. I'm almost sure of it. You could get probably twice the numbers if you took them away from the female.
That's interesting. Yeah, super fascinating. Now, I wonder if you talked about shell dwellers. Golden ocellatus, was that the shell dweller, the shelly?
Yeah.
How the female, and this was amazing. This is the first time I had heard about it, but she enters the snail shell and the male will release his milt and she will eject herself with vigor out of the shell and create a back flow of pressure, which then sucks the milt into the snail shell to facilitate the fertilization, right? The joining together of the male and female. Which that's
the theory, which I read. That's not my idea. I read that, but then I saw the physical behavior and went, yeah, that looks like exactly what that is. She's intentionally creating displacement to pull the outside water in with the milk.
I had never heard that before. And granted, that's a lot smaller of a cavity, that snail shell versus an apisto cave. But I wonder if that is a strategy that any apistos adopt, where the female, if the male is that bad, maybe the female can do some type of, something like that to create that displacement pressure to bring the milt into the cave more efficiently.
I wonder. I'm going to have to film, 100 more of them and find one.
So how long are you spending in your fish room? Because the amount of time and observation that you're doing, are you relying on like the webcams to cue you in on when something is happening? But then you've got so many tanks that surely you don't have a webcam set on every single one. Like you must just be spending a ton of fish room time You
Yeah,
know,
I mean, because my computer's in here, I'm probably in here for 3 hours, 4 hours a night. And my tank lights are only on for 6 hours a day. They come on at about 4 p.m. So pretty shortly before I get home from work. But
mm.
the fish's whole lit up day, most of it, I'm here with them.
So that is another strategy that I don't think it's talked about very much is artificially make the fish room revolve around your schedule.
Hmm.
Yeah, like you are the sun to your fish, and when you are home and you can spend time in your fish room, that's when your lights come on. That's when your rainbow fish think it's daylight and they start spawning on their spawning mops or any other early morning fish behavior. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I mean, tank lights are really bright. Where as soon as there's ambient light, some fish catch on that it's morning. So like your rainbows, you would have to kind
Mm,
of black out the room for them to really buy that it's nighttime and not
gotcha.
spawn until you come home and turn on the lights. But most other fish stay very dormant and calm, even with some low ambient light until you turn on your tank lights. So yeah, you can build their schedule around yours. Anthony Mazeral's place, he has that whole room. You might have heard about that, where day and night is reversed. They have their nocturnal fish where the lights come on overnight when no one's there, but during the daytime
Mm,
for people, the room is illuminated with red light only, because
mm.
that doesn't seem like, they don't pick up the red spectrum very well, so they can't really tell that it's illuminated. So during our day, you're seeing the fish's night, and you can see all those cool behaviors.
Oh, that's awesome. And that's his Amazon Research Center in Peru, or his?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's awesome. Very cool. So in your room, then, do you black out your windows, or do you let ambient light in?
I let ambient
Oh.
light in. Actually, the window is blacked out right now, but that's for filming, because if you can
Mm,
black out the room and only illuminate the tank, the glare off the glass is a lot easier.
mm-hmm.
But no, I let the ambient light in. I don't really depend on being there for the perfect morning. I
Okay.
would say most of my fish, they chill out and just relax until the actual tank lights come on.
Gotcha. And then when you come home, are you actively working on your, because right now your body is mostly turned away from your fish tanks. I think by the way your room looks, maybe that 10-gallon rack on your left, not the one that we can see, but the one that you'd kind of motion to.
Hmm.
Are you still like working at your computer, or are you more you're just you're just walking around peeking into tanks?
There's nothing behind me that I really need to see. If I was
Mm,
trying to catch fish spawn, they would be to my left, and they're in
okay.
my peripheral vision the whole time I'm sitting here.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And is that the one that you're going to be filming the spawning behavior predominantly then?
Yeah, predominantly if they can fit. I mean, I've filmed the plecos spawning over there, because that's where they are.
Okay.
But yeah, most of the time they're over here to my left, so I can see them.
Okay, so you're hanging out, and then you camera kind of at the ready, and if you see something cool, you're on it filming.
Yeah, they're all sitting here ready to go all
Nice,
the time, just waiting for
nice.
something cool to happen, and then I run
I
over
do
and
I do like
film
that
it.
you have a Sony camera though, so that's one more person that can be anti-Canon against Zenzo. So I do appreciate that, Lowell.
Oh, I can make cases for both, but the lens
No,
availability
no,
for
no. Well,
Sony
let's
is,
just
oh,
let's just keep
just
the
kidding.
illusion of making fun
Uh,
of Zenzo.
no, Canon sucks. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Nice. So what do you have, what are you trying to capture now film wise? Like what is something where you're like, man, this is what I want to capture. This is what I want to be able to share. Maybe a video that you're currently making if you feel so inclined to share that.
Yeah, so just this last weekend, I was filming the T poses, the actual spawning for Osteogaster schultzi, which is the black Venezuelan.
Mm,
I bred those actually a long time ago, but I'm redoing it all because I never caught them actually spawning. So
hmm.
I have another tank that's I have some tanks that are just for photography. Most of them are broken down and put away, but I have one tank that I just made recently that's just for spawning Corydorus, and it's positioned in a way that lends itself to being filmed. And so I was set up trying to catch them. I also have some Danio Chopre that I've bred several times. Like I have a couple hundred of them, but I've never caught them spawning, so I need to set up a tank. And a lot of the times for stuff like that, I don't always sit there while they're spawning. Sometimes I just set up a camera and I'll record for 12 hours, and then I'll
Mm,
go review the footage and find the piece that I wanted and cut that out.
okay. What is that like if you've got a 12-hour piece of footage? Like what does that editing process look like? How long does it take to kind of scrub through that?
Uh, Sometimes finding something is a little tricky, but like the Apistos, for example,
Hmm.
I don't film those by hand. Those are always a camera that's set up
Mm,
and recording for many hours at a time, and then I go back and pick it out later. But you can just skip forward in the video and you go, oh hey, there's eggs on the wall, and then you just
gotcha.
back up a half hour from
Gotcha.
there, and you cut that piece, that chunk out, so that it's easier to process and edit when it's being integrated into other footage.
Okay. And so between those, let's see, the Black Venezuelan and the Daniel Chopra, are one of those going to be your next video that you release?
I don't know. There's a couple things I wanted to redo. I need to do a video on the Schultzi on some their Ahoplosoma, the Loxozonis or Loxozonum, which was my first wild caught Cory. I need to do a video on those. Um, I have pretty much all the footage. I just want to redo raising the fry because
Mm,
when I actually hatched the eggs, I did that humid but not submerged incubation method.
right.
And while that's really cool and I want to play with it more, I don't know if I want to put that in a raw video without context because I don't want to give a bunch of people the impression that's how you want to do it.
Right.
I don't want to
Do you want
monkey
to
see, monkey do that.
unpack that a little bit? So what are you experimenting with, or
Well,
what did you experiment with?
Corydoras eggs. So we do this with killifish, things like
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
You can take
Yeah.
the eggs and put them in moss or on a
Mhm.
damp paper towel, seal them up in a plastic bag, and they stay humid. Even some of them they let completely dry out. Right? Some eggs can handle that, but there are some species of fish that lay eggs where they take a really long time to hatch, and you can keep them safe from fungus in that period of time by keeping them humid but out of the water. And so I just thought, oh, I wonder if that would work with Cory's because the eggs are pretty firm, solid,
Mhm.
durable, right? And so I just tried putting eggs on a damp paper towel, sealing it up in a bag, and it turns out, yeah, you totally can. It actually works. It works really well. I've never seen more eggs at the end of the incubation period with fry in them than
Mm,
when doing that. But there's a downside to it where not spending all that time underwater, there's a material property of the egg membrane that doesn't seem to change. They don't seem to break down. So at the end of several days, they're still very tough, even
mm,
sticky. And so the fry can have a hard time hatching out of them.
mm,
And so the gains that you make in having more viable eggs, well, you lose that same number because they never hatch. Or some of them hatch but a day too late, and that messes up their spines.
yeah.
So there's weird trade-off there where it's a tactic you can use, and maybe there's a right recipe where you do that for the first day and a half or something where they're the most vulnerable to fungus. Once fry are going inside, they seem to be more resilient. So maybe there's a danger zone you can get them past humid, and then you get them right back in the water, and the membrane breaks down like it's supposed to. But it needs more experimentation, and I don't just want to show that as a method and have people just
Right.
repeat it and then have
Right.
horrible results because they didn't see the whole other video on what that means.
Did you try and assist the egg hatching? And what I mean by assisting is Gary Lang talks about when he goes to clubs and he donates eggs, or eggs are up in the auction in a vial. You can is you're basically pressurizing the vial, right? So let's say you've got a 75-gallon tank. You take the vial, you stick it down in the vial, and then I think you crack the seal in there.
Hmm.
I can't remember. I can't remember the exact steps, but you're basically like pressurizing the vial, and that can help the fry hatch out of the egg. Where I'm wondering, what did you try? Did you just let nature run its course once you return the eggs back to
No,
water?
I didn't do anything. That's really
Okay.
interesting. I've heard him talk about CO2 in the water helping rainbow fish hatch. Also, vinegar eels or microworms in there. I heard him talk about that. I've never heard about the
Mm.
pressure shock doing it.
I
No,
can't
I didn't
remember
do
which one
anything.
it is. I can't remember which one it is. It's the two things are you can put the vial in your pocket and just walk around with them, and
Yes, he
that
mentioned that.
motion should do something. But there was another one where I want to say it's you take it all the way down, you put it in a deep aquarium, and then you crack the lid. You don't let any of the eggs out, but you let that pressure rush in, and that's supposed to help them hatch as well. I think I want to say when you buy his eggs, you get the little card, the little information card that comes with it, and I think it was on there. Or Corey's also, or he talked about that in the fish club. But yeah, that's one of his methods, and I tried that and had success with some Chiller Athena eggs that I got from him.
Interesting. No, I
Yeah.
didn't try anything like that. I just wanted to see what happened. So if I do that
Okay.
again, it'll probably be a short period out of the water and then back in the water relatively soon. But I'm trying something else right now actually. The one of the methods I haven't tried yet for keeping fungus off the eggs is hydrogen peroxide. Have you heard that one?
Yep.
Okay. So and that's
I've heard of it.
periodically.
I've never tried it though.
I hadn't tried it either, and I think it's periodically adding hydrogen peroxide to keep the fungus from growing. But I thought, what if you could keep them in a sealed chamber and sterilize it? And
Hmm.
so I have small containers with tight screw-on lids, and so I put the eggs in there, and I put a few drops of hydrogen peroxide, and I also swirled it around to
Mm.
get that peroxide water all over the inside. I probably haven't done this perfectly, but my thought is I'm going to kill everything in there that isn't the egg.
Yeah.
And I have two sets of these in the closet where it's warm, and we're on like the third day. They're perfect.
Okay.
They're pristine.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I'm gonna keep playing with that.
So when do you know? So the dry the moist paper towel method for the Cory eggs. At what day or what stage did you know, like, oh, I should probably get these guys back in the water?
Not until after I put them back in the water for the first time. Because
Oh,
depending on the temperature and the species, it takes usually between 4 and 6 days for the eggs to hatch normally. So I'm
okay.
watching them in the bag, and I'm looking at them through a macro lens, and I'm staring. They're sitting on a desk. They're sitting on my table, and I'm seeing the little fry twist and wiggle around inside the eggs. And I generally know what they look like, what the fry inside look like, what their activity level looks like in
Uh-huh.
the day before they hatch. So I started seeing that behavior, and when it's times they're ready to hatch, that's when I put them back in the water.
Mm,
Then I saw what happened next, which was that some of them hatched as they should, some of them took an extra day, and some of them never hatched at all.
hmm.
So it wasn't until
Interesting.
after returning them to the water at the end of a normal incubation period that I started forming the opinion that the egg is not softening like it should.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Have you haven't made a video about killie eggs, right? And like peat moss spawning or pulling
No.
them? Because I feel like when I've tried that, I was just doing my best to go off of maybe a few short videos online or forum content, but just not knowing or not having a clear picture of how moist the peat moss should be that goes
Hmm.
into the Ziploc bag. It just felt like such a subjective thing. It's like me in plumbing. How much plumbing tape should I wrap around this thing? Should I use pipe dope or not? There's not it's not an on off, right? It's this like gradient of how moist should this peat moss be. And I don't know if it was Gardener Eye or probably Blue Glarus that I tried this with. Just no success. No success. Maybe too moist. I don't know.
Now, Gardnerite shouldn't need that.
Yeah, I think they were spawning in a 20 long by themselves, just laying eggs, and the
Yeah,
daughter
yeah,
lost.
yeah.
I believe it was when I was playing with some Galeris.
Okay, okay. I actually haven't worked with anything that does the peat moss incubation or
Hmm.
anything like that, but yeah, I'd be curious to know too. I would suspect that as long as that it's more about the humidity of the air rather than how soggy the moss is, but I have no idea. Not from experience. That's another one of those things that you kind of need to see instead of being told about.
Well, let's add that to your list of you need to play with some Blue Glarus and play
Okay.
around with peat moss, because I mean I feel like that would be so fascinating. And of the nature stories of fish, like the idea of and I'm not sure if Galeris are the type species for this, but the killifish that are in those little pools that completely dry out and their eggs are in that mud, and then when the next rainy season comes along, the eggs hatch out, is just such an amazing survival story that I think is just so super cool.
It is cool, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what else do you want to add in the fish room? Like, what's a species that, or what's something that you really want to play around with and document and experiment with?
More quarries.
More Corys, okay.
Yeah, more quarries. Let me see. What do I have on my bucket list? So plecos were on a bucket list for a long time, and just did the leopard frogs, and that turned out great. So I'm really happy about it. So I'll clear those out, and I want to do queen arabesque
Queen
next.
Arabesque, okay.
Yeah, maybe something a little bit different diet, different behavior, because the leopard frogs, they're picoltia and they're carnivorous, which is
Right.
easy. It's very
Yeah.
easy to feed a carnivorous fish, but maybe some of the ones that want a different diet, that could be more challenging. You can't just throw a good pellet food at them and call it a day. So maybe it's just something that'll help me learn a little bit more about other challenges that are inherent to breeding plecos. I'm just stuffing the fish room with different Cory species. I have an interesting method that I'm working on for spawning Corys to breed that I can't ruin the surprise. It's so cool. I can't ruin the surprise. I'll tell you after we're
Sure,
done.
sure.
But I'm loading up on corridors because I want to try throwing this method at them and see if we can pull off breeding some things that are really challenging. So it's just been all about Corys lately. The other thing I really want to breed are the chocolate gouramis that I have, because they're fish that struck me the first time I ever saw them. They're brown, but it's like a beautiful, cool brown. And I've never done a mouth brooder either, so I'm really interested in getting those to breed so I can learn about gourami and mouth breeders.
Your footage of mouth brooders would be super awesome.
If I can catch it, yeah, that'd be a tough one. If I can catch it, I'm sure gonna try.
Yeah, I feel like I have faith in you, Lowell. So, and on that note too, your videos. So not only do you show like this side of the fish breeding that most people probably that are breeding fish don't get to see, but you also have a hilarious like you interject humor into it as well in your voiceovers. So I think just kind of all around, man, your videos are phenomenal. I know they take a lot of time for you to produce, as we've kind of talked about. Of just capturing the footage, but editing and then doing your voiceovers as well. Like that's a lot of production time. So I would highly encourage people to go check out his channel. And you're not the most frequent uploader, but what you do put out, man, it's quality. It's like that old saying of, people that don't have much to say, but when they do have something to say, it's very impactful. To me, it's like the same thing with your videos. You don't put them out all the time, but when you do, it's awesome. And again, for me, somebody that's just living and breathing the tropical fish hobby, for me to actually like really look forward to like, oh, that person put out a video. I really look forward to it. So.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. And I would say the same about your podcast. When they do come out, they're always worth a listen. Yeah.
Well, it's the guess. It's 99.9% the guess. And I'm just the medium to help get their story out. Because there's a lot of people like yourself that are just doing cool stuff and have so much to share. And yeah, I enjoy it. And now people get to see faces if the guest is cool with that.
There you go.
And watch us. Although I don't get to edit it anymore. So like if I goof up or if I have like so back when maybe 30 minutes ago, I had a little brain fart. I was like, I can't remember where I was going to take that. In the old days, I might have cut that out. So it sounded a lot smoother, where now we're just open kimono, man. Everybody gets to see the mess that this podcast is.
No, it's great.
All right. Well, Lowell, thank you so much for your time, man. We're hitting up an hour and 16 minutes. I appreciate you so much for taking time. And actually, you took a day off. So you took a day off to make this podcast happen. So I really appreciate you for doing that. And everybody, please, if you're not already subscribed and watching his videos, I will have a link in the description. You are missing out if you don't watch Lowell's video. Like that's all I can say, is that if you like fish, and especially if you like breeding fish, you are 100% missing out. Go check out his Etsy. I'll have that linked as well. How's your production? Are you able to? Are you keeping up with demand that Cory brought you for? No,
no, I'm not. I'm not. I haven't been able to for about a year.
That's awesome.
6 printers running every day. No, it's actually become a problem of where I've had to back off. And you know what? If I'm out of stock today, I'm out of stock today, because the fish health is starting to suffer because I don't have time. So no, trying to find balance. But the answer is no. I can't keep up with it.
What is the print time? Like, what is the print time? Because this is numerous components. This has got to at least be
24 hours probably for everything.
I was going to guess 14. Oh wow, 24.
I print slow.
Oh, because Pet G, you got to go even slower than PLA, right?
Yeah, that's a whole other hour. We can talk about that. Okay. But yes, I believe in printing slow.
Wow. Okay. So 24 hours for this, and your price point for this thing is like 49, maybe, for this guy?
No, it's 40.
Oh, 39. Yeah. So $39.99 for something that takes 24 hours to produce. And I think the other thing about 3D printing is the risk factor of something could happen at hour 22. Something happens at hour 22, and it's completely like, just, you got to start over. Right. And so I would say this is well worth it. Like if you want an awesome fry tray for growing out your fry, watch his videos. Cory features it. Dean features it. It is, I haven't run it yet, but I know from secondhand experience that this thing is phenomenal. And when I finally do get Fish Room 2.0 up and running, I absolutely will be running this and probably more of them.
I'll load you up. You just tell me when you got the fish room going. I'll send you a box.
Oh man, awesome, dude. Well, you sent me the little passive egg collector, and I
Mhm.
use that as my like my nut holder
Pistachio nut
for
holder.
my yeah.
Yeah, I heard
Which
that.
I'm wondering, like, what am I eating, and am I getting like little microplastics in my body every time I take a bite?
And that was
Probably.
probably not used.
What's that?
Probably. The egg collector is probably never had fish eggs in it. Most likely. I think
But
that
I'm
was
just saying,
some.
like the microplastics of like the nuts hitting the plastic, if there's any that are
Oh,
coming off of
the
it.
seasoning. Yeah, for sure.
This,
You're part plastic now.
yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, we probably all are, to be honest.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. And everybody, again, please go check out Lowell's Fish Lab and put him even farther in the back order on Make More Fish. But be patient because his stuff is worth it.
Thank you very
And
much.
with that, thank you so much, everybody. Oh, I have to hit the end recording button. Sorry, everyone.